did get an email from you. But remind me what it was about.
Like cost of public work directors, and then you do a comparison.
Yes, I did get that. Thank you.
I'm gonna try not to get too sidetracked, but my grandson's playing basketball on TV right up there.
We know where your priorities are, Jamie. So
Yeah.
we'll see after the meeting.
Exactly.
On TV, is this the NBA?
Get on here. But we are already recording, so.
Thank you.
He's logging on now. I just got a text from him.
Okay, we'll give him another 30 seconds and then we'll get started.
Tell him he's doing the pledge.
Is that his punishment? All right, we now have our full council. We'll call our meeting to order.
This meeting is being recorded.
Mike Losey's going to lead us in the flag salute.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. Roll call, please, Buffy.
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Losey,
Here.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Here.
Mayor Long,
Here. Thank you. We have some proclamations and presentations tonight. On our first one is National Mentoring Month. And this is in recognition and support of National Mentoring Month, January 2022. Whereas this year, Big Brothers Big Sisters of the North Coast, CASA of Humboldt, and Boys and Girls Club of the Redwoods celebrate the 137 combined years of service provided to the youth in Humboldt County. Together, it is recognized that the future of Humboldt County rests on the success of its youth. And whereas a mentor is a caring, consistent presence who devotes time to help a young person develop personal strength and achieve their potential through a structured and trusting relationship. Quality mentoring encourages positive choice, promotes self-esteem, supports academic achievement, and introduces young people to new ideas. And whereas research shows that young people matched with a caring adult through a quality mentoring program are 55% more likely to be enrolled in college, 81% more likely to report participating regularly in extracurricular activities and sports, 78% more likely to volunteer, and twice as likely to say they held a leadership position than those who did not have a mentor. And whereas youth development experts agree that mentoring is critical to the social, emotional, and cognitive development of youth, helping them navigate the path to adulthood more successfully. And whereas our community has a number of community volunteers, teachers, advocates, and many others who support the mentoring movement and work selflessly to improve our children's odds for success. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Fortuna hereby recognizes January 2022 as National Mentoring Month and thanks all of our local heroes who participate in quality mentoring programs to equip our youth with tools to lead healthy and productive lives. The City Council also calls on residents to help close the gap between the availability of mentors and the number of children facing challenging circumstances who look to spend time with a big brother, big sister, CASA advocate, or Boys and Girls Club of the Redwoods mentor. Signed the 18th day in City of Fortuna by Sue Long, Mayor. And I believe Michael Kine is going to accept this proclamation on behalf of Big Brothers and Big Sisters and these other groups. And Michael, if you would like to say a few words.
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor Long. I would like to say thank you to the city for having us here in the Eel River Valley and in the community. And I'd also like to do a quick shout out to some of our local supportive funders, such as the Kiwanis Club in Kent, in particular, Denise over at the McLean Foundation, of course, the Fortuna Chamber of Commerce, and also Heather, who's been one of our greatest fundraisers over at Starbucks here in Fortuna, over at the Strongs Creeks Plaza. So thank you so much for all that you do for our community, and we look forward to working in the Eel River Valley and expanding and working with our mentors and also our kids.
All right, thank you, Michael. I appreciate
Thank
being
you.
here. Our next item is introduction of the new facility custodian, Lucretia. Whoever introduces her can help me with the last name.
I'll go ahead and introduce her. Thanks, Mayor Long. This is Cameron Mall, the Parks and Recreation Director. So I wanted to introduce Lucretia Prabhu. She is our new facility custodian. And as most of you know, we were without a full-time facility custodian for quite some time, trying to manage part-timers and trying to manage a cleaning service. So we came back to the desire to want to bring someone on who could be consistent. And that person is Lucretia. And so far, she's proven herself to be a very diligent and detail-oriented employee. She started in mid-November, and she comes to us with previous experience, including janitorial duties at some other local businesses. And I've heard a lot of great things from other departments at this point about how great of a job she's doing, and want to keep that rolling. Just keep in mind, this position is actually new to the Parks Department. This position used to be under the General Services Department. So now this is the first time we are operating with this new full-time position. So glad to have Lucretia here. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to her. I know she wants to say a few items. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there.
I just wanted to say thank you very much, you guys, for giving me the opportunity to be part of the city. I am absolutely in love with my job. All my coworkers are amazing. I've had nothing but a positive experience since I've started.
Good to welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Do we have Erica on here?
Yes,
Yep.
I just let her in.
Okay, I looked a minute ago and she wasn't there. Hi, Erica. So this next recognition is to recognize Erica Thompson's service on the Fortuna Business Improvement District's Board of Directors. And we have a certificate of recognition that says the City Council of the City of Fortuna awards this certificate to Eric Thompson. The city expresses our sincere thanks and gratitude for your 10 years of dedicated service to the Fortuna Business Improvement District. The city commends your outstanding contributions and commitment to Fortuna's business community. We wish you good health, happiness, and continued success in all your endeavors. Signed the 18th day of January, in witness thereof by Mayor Sue Long. So I get to sign it and I'll get it to you, Erica, but on behalf of the entire council, we're just very grateful for your dedication to the city and the Fortuna Business Improvement District, and we know you're still going to be involved somehow.
Thank you very much, Mayor Long and Honorable Council. I sure appreciate it. And I just will give a shout out real quick. Anybody who's looking to get involved in the city and the business community, FBIT is a wonderful way to do that and is a great opportunity to really kind of get your feet wet in how city things work and support good people that work hard. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for the certificate. I was not expecting it. So have a great night, you guys.
All right, thanks, Erica. And our next presentation is from our Measure E Chair, Walt Wilson. Is Walt on here? Yep. Walt, we're not hearing you. You might need to unmute.
I thought I did. Am I on? Off?
Fire. Now we can hear you.
Actually, I was looking for a photograph and I'm not seeing it, so I'll just go ahead, I guess. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff. Thank you for providing us this opportunity to address you this evening. I am here with Joe Hardcastle. We represent the Measure E Oversight Committee. Joe is Vice Chair. I am Chair. I don't see Joe either, but I know he's on. As you know, the Oversight Committee strives to adhere to the duties and responsibilities set forth in the Council Resolution establishing the committee, and to use Measure E funds as transparently and as efficiently as possible. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it difficult for the committee to conduct business in a normal manner, and we thank each committee member for their many contributions during this past year. We also thank our city advisors for their necessary and valuable assistance and guidance. And that is Finance Director Aaron Selmley, City Manager Merritt Perry, Deputy City Clerk Buffy Gray, and many others. Please refer to the Measure E revenue and expenditures documents contained in your council packet for available details on fiscal year 2020-21. The Oversight Committee is satisfied that all Measure E funds are being utilized in accordance with the spirit and intent of the ballot measure. The committee thanks the council and city staff for their hard work on behalf of the citizens of Fortuna. This will conclude our presentation, and Joe and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Walt. Does any member of the council have any comments or questions?
I just want to make a quick comment, if I could. I just would like to let the committee know, though, Measure E Oversight Committee know, just for me personally, as well as probably the council, but we really appreciate the work, the effort that you folks put into being on this committee. This report is excellent. Going through it, it's concise, and we really appreciate you folks being there. And thank you, Walt, for heading up this committee.
Thank you.
I would just like to quickly give the public a rundown on who the committee members are. So as Walt shared, he is the chair. Joseph Hardcastle is the vice chair. And then we have Mrs. Chris Mobley, Donnie Grimm, Debbie August, Martin Morris, and Tina Taylor. And they're just all doing a fantastic job, and they really put a lot of thought into their decisions. So I just appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, real
Yes.
quickly, Walt, if I'm not mistaken, you have a public input meeting tomorrow night for ideas for future projects for Measure E. If that's true, I'd just like to invite the public to participate.
That's true.
It starts at 5:30, is that correct?
Yes, 5:30.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say that I appreciate the work that the committee puts in, and I often get questions from people on how to have input, and I tell them to go to the next meeting, which is tomorrow. But I also say that we have the committee that ensures that the money is spent in the intent of the tax measure, and that the public is invited to bring input to it. So we're looking to be as transparent as possible, and we appreciate the public's input. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Walt. We'll move on to oral comments from the public. There is a number on your screen if you would like to comment. And if you are on our call, you can raise your hand and we will get to you. While we're waiting to see if anyone calls in, we do have 10 items on our consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull anything? Seeing none, someone want to make a motion?
Actually, I apologize, late to the party. Can I pull reported disbursements, please?
Yes. So anyone else? Okay, Jeremy.
Okay, on page 8 of 14, there was a item regarding the Cascade drilling, which made sense up until the last one for City Hall pest service.
I already emailed Aaron on that one too.
Oh.
Yes, so just to address that, Councilmember Stanfield, that was an input error. So it is all for well 5 and not for pest services. So thanks for pointing that out, and as a clarification, that was all for well 5.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, with that, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Buffy?
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Losi,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. All right. Our first city council business item is to authorize supplemental budget request and the city manager to execute a grant agreement with the First 5 Humboldt to receive funding for a playgroup program.
Thanks. Cameron Mole, our Parks Director, will be providing the staff report on this item.
Thank you, Merritt. Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. I'm really excited about this agenda item. In particular, I think it's really in alignment with the proclamation tonight for the National Mentoring Month. So currently our Recreation Division does not offer any programs for children under 4. And so I thought that it would be a great idea to try to explore being able to start a program to be able to provide this service to the public. And so I thought about how about starting a play group? And what a play group is essentially is a space for to facilitate social interactions, positive learning experience is for newborn to 5-year-olds and their families. And these programs really are not only for children, but for parents as well. Parents also, we know that raising children can be quite difficult. So it's also a positive space for parents who need some support and networking. And so I've had some previous experience and observation and all the positive outcomes that have come through play groups. They, have proven to prepare children better for kindergarten, also reduce what are called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and just create for a really positive environment for children to play and for families to network. So the problem was we needed some funding to support a program of this nature. So I reached out to First Five Humboldt, who provides programs and services for families with children ages newborn to 5 years old, to help us try to facilitate such a program and pay for the staffing and the supplies that would come with that program, because we do have such a small budget for the Recreation Division. So I submitted an application to First Five Humboldt, and it was approved. And to keep in mind a little bit of background on First Five, they are a state-run agency. They collect their taxes from tobacco taxes, California tobacco taxes, and then those funds are then allocated to the different counties. So ours is First Five Humboldt. So I submitted the application to them. It was approved in order to provide a play group for families twice a week, Thursdays and Sundays. And so what the agreement that you see here as an attachment would approve funding in order to support that program. So essentially, it would be $14,000 of annual funding added into the recreation budget to support the costs needed for the extra staffing, which would be 2 facilitators to run each program, plus the materials and supplies needed to run the program. So for the SBR that you see, there'd be $14,000 going in revenue-wise, $12,000 in expenses for staffing, $2,000 in expenses for supplies. I got some good news from First Five last week in that they were willing to pay up to $3,000 worth of additional funding for materials and supplies to get our program started as a one-time cost. We're really excited to be able to have this opportunity to potentially start this program. So my recommendation and action on this item is to approve the agreement with First Five Humboldt and approve the SBR to adjust the annual budget to include this new program. And I'm happy to answer any questions that City Council or any others might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Before we ask questions for Cameron, Buffy, can you note that we closed public comment? I forgot that.
Yes.
All right. Any questions or comments for Cameron regarding First Five?
I would just say that this is one of the things that we really is an offering to the public, and it's something that's needed and will provide a place for the younger kids to come and interact and prepare themselves for school when it comes around. And this is the kind of thing that we should take advantage of, and I commend Cameron for reaching out like that. So thank you.
Mike Losey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Cameron, just for clarification, so we will be having 14,000 coming in from First Five and then 14,000 going to the program from our revenues, correct?
Yeah, no, the 14,000 would be from First Five to support the program. The expenses would also be 14,000, so 12,000 in staffing costs, and then approximately 2,000 in supplies and materials to operate the program.
So it's a wash at this point, and then plus the 3,000 that they're going to or be willing to provide for additional equipment or whatever supplies.
That's correct.
Perfect. Very nice program. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy.
Muted.
Jeremy, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Cameron, thank you so much for applying for the grant and getting this going. That's greatly appreciated. Is this an annual request renewal, or is this a 5-year program, or what?
It's an annual request renewal. So the commissioners for the First Five will get together every year, and then they'll allocate funds to the certain departments. So as long as we're performing at a higher level, then there's no reason why we wouldn't get funded on an annual basis. The funds are reimbursed, so we do have to submit quarterly invoices essentially to First Five, and then they reimburse us the funds.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I will note that there could be some additional revenue that would come in. We haven't decided yet. You know, we want to offer it as a free program to the public, but we also would offer a suggested donation. So if anyone feels willing, they can make a donation, which would also go into revenue. So there potentially would be more revenue besides the $14,000 from First Five. Could be some participant revenue as a suggested donation to support the program.
As long as that doesn't make people feel like they shouldn't show up if they can't pay.
It's free. It's a free program, and it's just a suggestion. So we will not turn anyone away if they don't want to pay.
Any other questions?
I do have a question. Who's going to be in charge of that play group?
So between myself and the recreation supervisor, we would oversee the program, and then we would have at least 2 play group facilitators is what they're called. And those would be the part-time staff who would help run and operate the program on Thursdays and Sundays. But it would be overseen or directed or managed by myself and the recreation program supervisor.
And how likely are you able to get part-timers to do that?
We currently have part-timers that are interested in doing that. So we could potentially use staff that we already have hired that could take that over. However, I will be recruiting for some other previous or current playgroup facilitators from other programs.
Mike Johnson.
So what do you anticipate your hours being, and what do you anticipate the start date?
Start date is kind of up in the air because right now there are no play groups being offered due to the pandemic. So we kind of have to just wait and see how the pandemic unfolds. However, right now is a good time to do that planning. So we have some time until we can safely open to do some of that planning for the program. So when it does start, we're ready to go and we can roll it out seamlessly. And then, sorry, what was your other question, Mike?
About what you thought the anticipated hours might be.
Thank you. So hours would be Thursdays and Sundays. We've got it right now, I believe, from 10 to 1:30, 10 a.m. to 1:30.
And so we'll have the funding once the things calm down somewhat and we can offer it, we'll be ready to roll.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anyone else with comments or questions for Cameron? Anyone from the public wish to comment on this item? Should have asked that earlier. I don't see anyone raising their hand that's on our call. So Buffy, if someone calls in, give me attention.
Okay.
So if we don't have any more questions, we can go ahead with a motion. If somebody does call in, we'll grab them, but we don't have a lot of participation on our call-in thing, so.
Madam Mayor, I'll go ahead and move to approve the supplemental budget request and to authorize city staff to execute an agreement with First 5 Humboldt to offer a playgroup activity for 1 year.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Buffy?
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Losi,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Cameron.
Welcome.
next-
Thank you.
Item is a supplemental budget request to use American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds for the server updates necessary to implement Tyler Technology software for the Community Development Department. So I'm going to turn off my video and my sound, and Tammy's going to take this item since my business is part of the community development for Fortuna. So Tammy, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Long. Do we have a staff report?
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Trent, before I hand it to Liz Shorey, our Deputy Director of Community Development, I just wanted to remind the council that this item was brought to them once before, and with the request to get some feedback from the building community on willingness to pay and use the software. So this is the second time that you'll have seen this item. It was asked to be brought back, and so Liz will be providing the staff report and giving you some of the results of that, the survey that they did with our builders.
So thank you, Merritt and Honorable Mayor and council members, or Mayor Pro Tem. I'm going to go ahead and share a PowerPoint. It'll be fairly brief. Oh, here we go. Okay, so let's see, I might start at the top. So yeah, this is a supplemental budget request for the planning and building software. And it's to use the American Rescue Plan funds in the amount of $80,230 for licensing and server upgrades. So there's really two benefits or two components to the planning and building software. One is that it would create a public online portal where builders or homeowners, whoever's doing a project, can do everything, remotely. So that includes submitting applications, having those reviewed and commented on and issued, making payments, checking their permit status. So the software will automatically update permit status, and there will be a place for people to remotely check on the status and to communicate with, the building inspector or the reviewers. Builders can schedule inspections online and print permits online. So pretty much everything can be done remotely. And then the permitting management software that is on the internal staff side. Everything is, fairly automatic in that regard. It streamlines the internal processes by really reducing the amount of different kinds of tracking and programs that we have to enter data into, and manage the data and communicate, through each step of the way. We use right now we use different programs for different purposes. For data storage and for communications and, creating documents and things like that. And it really actually is, a bit cumbersome for the amount of people that are working on it and the types of communication and the types of product. So it allows us then to track the permit approvals automatically. It'll give us updates, and it will let us see, instantly where a permit is in the process and who needs to follow up, there's some accountability there because it lets us see, who hasn't responded. So it tracks the dates and the types of approvals, or whether something has been sent back to the applicant. So it pretty much lets us check those things instantly, and that reduces a lot of time and opening programs and emails and things like that. So that coordinates department reviews. It will allow remote data entry for inspections. So an inspector's out in the field, and they can, instead of doing the handwritten card, they can do an electronic inspection and put the permit status and their notes. It'll be automatically saved in a certain file, and then issuing permits. So it's really going to streamline for the public, and the benefits to the public, in addition to being able to do things remotely. And that's really the way communication is done nowadays for a lot of things. It also will benefit people who may not be able to come to the office. So, it could be an office manager for a builder who, has accessibility issues and finds it hard to get to City Hall. So they have to send somebody else, or, it may be difficult for them to come in and pick up a permit. They can do that remotely. Maybe the builder, maybe the builder's spouse is the one who processes the paperwork, and they have accessibility issues. So in addition to just streamlining it and allowing remote access, there's also accessibility and the COVID. Really this is tied to the American Rescue Plan Act funds because of COVID and reducing personal contact, personal interactions, but there's other health issues that benefit the public as well. So, overall, this is really the way communication and data management goes nowadays. So it's really bringing us up to kind of the modern standard. just facilitating a lot of communication. So the cost breakdown for the software, we did issue proposals to 3 different contracting firms, and this is the one they did negotiate with us, bringing the cost down comparable to the other couple of other agencies or firms. This is the one, Tyler Software is the one that we felt was, the most responsive, and also, providing a good product, and also able to work with the finance department, with their Tyler software. So it'll be a seamless interaction on their part as far as taking payments. So that was a significant benefit to this as well. And then, so let me go back here. So the licensing and training, $55,230, and plus the server upgrades of $25,000, and those would be paid for with the ARPA funds. So that would be $80,230, which is in the motion in the staff report. And then the annual maintenance cost isn't technically part of this approval, because this would be, from the general fund, or, not tied to an SBR, this SBR. And the annual maintenance cost would be $14,000. And the potential funding for that is, so there would be the initial purchase of the hardware and the licensing and training from the ARPA funds. And then the annual fee of $14,000 would be, could be reimbursed by 5%, actually 5% technology fee. And that would be placed on building permits. So that would be over-the-counter permits, and all the way up front to single family and commercial building permits, in a range of approximately $5 on small permits, approximately $200 for single family residential permits, and a fee of $275 on an average new commercial project, and that would generate the $14,000. This would be, it can be considered tonight. It should be considered because it would be an ongoing cost to the city, but it would be collected, or it would be established on the annual fee schedule. So, and then the other thing that Merritt mentioned, we did do a builder survey. We sent 28, we sent the survey to 28 local builders, and the questions that we sent out were included in your staff report. What we gave you is the summary of the survey results, and then a list of the questions that were asked. And so each of the respondents, we received 12 responses out of the 28 that we sent. And the responses were generally positive, slightly higher than 50% for the most part. The nine respondents out of the 12 were in favor of an online portal or an email with digital building plans. So that would be submittal of building plans instead of the paper. So that saves them money and printing and delivering them. 9 respondents were in favor of an online portal. 8 were in support of receiving a permit from an online portal. 8 were in support of payment online, and 6 were in support of paying the fee for the service. That's 50% of the respondents. And 7 felt that an online printing portal would have a positive effect on their business. So, it's slightly higher than 50%. And then I would add that the other jurisdictions do have online permitting software, and they do charge a technology fee to fund the ongoing costs. So that includes Arcata, Eureka, and the county. So a lot of the builders are familiar with, that service. That's probably why we did receive slightly higher than 50%. These builders were all local, so we did get the names and addresses from the cities, the permit list. These are the common builders within that get issued permits. So the recommendation is to approve an SBR to use the American Rescue Plan Act funds for Tyler Technologies and the server upgrades necessary to implement that. And I will pass that back to the council.
Thank you, Liz. Does any of the council have any questions for Liz?
I have a few.
Go ahead.
If you can go back to slide number 2 for me. My first question came along the lines of, this technology is only as good as the person using it, right? I mean, a lot of times. So is in that training, what does that include with your on-site remote data entry for inspections? Are we going to be issuing the building department iPads so that they're doing that work right on site? Is the public going to be able to see every application or just somebody who's logged into the exact portal?
So I know that for that last question, well, I'll answer both. Yeah, it would be through a tablet. So the building department would have tablets to do that. In the training, I know that I can't say specifically what, the level and degree and amount, the hours of training that the finance department received, but I know that it was extensive, it was complete. I know from observing that, the trainers were here for an appropriate amount of time. And I know that there was follow-up, and in speaking with Aaron, he was really satisfied with the level of training and the follow-up. There's continuing to be follow-up, and that's part of the annual fee is, updating forms when needed, just troubleshooting and training when things get updated. And then what can be seen on the online portal? I don't remember specifically for this. I know for the county, you can go to their online portal and see what permits are active, or you can see all of the permits that have been issued online, that are tracked online. And I think the data is limited to, just the basic, the applicant, the address, this and the status for the general public. So the applicant themselves can see, basically the project file, and actually anyone can request to see a project file because it is a public document. So not everything needs to be put online. So it would just be really the basic information for the general public. And then, and that would help, a neighbor might be interested in some activity that's going on adjacent to them, and they can look up to see what type of a permit it is and what the status is. And then again, the applicant will be able to see more detailed, the details of the permit inspections.
So will it require you or your staff to go in on a regular basis to see the status update of a project that's going through the different departments? Or will there be, like, if it sits there for 3 days, will there be an automated reminder email to whoever's desk it's sitting on?
Yeah, absolutely. There will be an automatic issuance when a permit. So when anyone responds, we can set it up. I don't think we're going to set it up that, when anyone responds. So there's a building permit with 5, staff people who, building, planning, engineering, fire department. We do that now actually with our personal emails, but, we would get an automatic reminder when a permit is ready, and then, it can be set up to have a subsequent, a week later or 2 weeks later or something like that. And then, one of the good things is, the useful things is to check on a permit status. So all of the respondents are in one place instead of having to there'll just be, there's a button or a button to push whether you want to see who hasn't responded, check this response, who hasn't responded, look at the comments. So you want to see what the engineering department has said on it. So that's all in one place right now. Anytime you do any of that kind of inquiry, you have to go to different programs and kind of do a little, investigative work. So it's, and that kind of is sort of a little bit of a delay. Whereas, when you open the portal, all of that information is available on the screen.
On slide number 3, I'm using them to kind of prompt my questions, so thank you. So does that licensing, training, would that also include the hardware costs for the tablets and so forth? That $55,000?
No, I don't think the tablet costs are included in there, but if you look at tablets, we have one building inspector and a building official, and so it would be pretty limited, and so it'd be a relatively low cost, but it's not included in that quote.
And then regarding the server, is that in the same room as dispatch? Because I know there was a heating issue.
It wouldn't be. It would be in the other city server room, and we're going through a similar. At the last meeting in December, the council approved the Park software, which is also a Tyler software. So it's the same brand as our finance software, the proposed building software, and we're going through that now. So we're hoping, if this is approved tonight, to be able to have all that work done on the server at the same time. And so they bring in the new servers to serve both parks and community development.
Okay. And last question for me is on the annual maintenance. Is this a contractual, like they can't jack up the price once we put their software in place for many, many years, or how do we guarantee the 14,000?
I need to review the terms of the contract, but let me take a look. It may have those terms in the quote that was attached to the staff report.
Merritt, I could probably help address that question if you'd like.
Please.
So I would suspect that would be same to our finance software. And what we included in that agreement is that it cannot increase more than 3% per year. So there would see annual increases, but it wouldn't be, they wouldn't all of a sudden come in with a 10% increase or something major. It would just be kind of smaller, more incremental, manageable increases, if any at all.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question.
Tam, I think you're on mute, Tammy. If you want to unmute, we can't hear you. And I see Councilmember Losi has a question too.
Sorry, my iPad fell and I must have hit it. I can't see any hands on here because I can't see anybody. So you're just going to have to speak up. The screen's on, so I can't see any of you. So Mike Losi has some questions.
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Liz, I know you mentioned that there's basic information available to the public, like limited data. But I'm wondering if the possibility exists for a portal to be available for planning commission members to access additional information if they would have a question on a particular project or something. So that's one question. And then the other question I had along the lines of Jeremy's issues with regard to the cost. Have you figured if the 5% technical fee will cover the annual maintenance cost on this?
Yes, that's what the 5% on building permit fees is specifically generated to cover that exact annual maintenance cost.
Okay.
And I don't know if we would make like an entire file available to the planning commission or the public. Typically it's limited to probably the permit application and the permit itself, and maybe the, the receipt. I think it's cumbersome to make the whole file available. There would be a means to communicate on a specific project by email through that portal specifically. And, that would be, I think, the means to garner additional information on a project. And then again, the file is a public record. So, on request, and we do email parts of a file, or if it's a public records request, we do copy the whole file and issue that.
And if I could add to that, Liz, specifically the question is, would the planning commission have access to it? Just like any member of the public would, you have to pay additional fees for each user, and we wouldn't think they would need it with such frequency, but they could go to planning staff and they can make an inquiry, and Liz should be able to print off the status of a project at any time. And so they really wouldn't, they wouldn't really have a role in accessing or moving that information or processing it, but it would be readily available to them through staff and what the public can view on the online portal.
Thank you.
Councilman Johnson, did you have a question?
I was just going to make a comment, and looking at the survey and from what Liz had said, would you pay a small fee for large format in-house printing? 6 out of 9 said yes. Preferred application submittal method. 9 out of 12 said online portal or email with digital plans and printing. Preferred building inspection scheduling. Online portal was the majority. Preferred building permit issuance and payment. Online payment portal and email or online portal was for those. So it appears that a lot of the developers and the builders are using this method already, and they've gotten used to it. And in the interest of COVID and convenience, they're interested in this method. So I think this and the 5.5% fee would cover the maintenance cost, it looks like. So it looks like this is the way of the future, and we're coming into it on the tail end, but we are moving in that direction. So.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could just kind of make a comment in response to Councilmember Johnson's kind of analysis of that.
Yes.
I would just say, Mike, I agree that there's a lot of developers that are putting in projects, and to be able to save them time, some are in Eureka, some are other places, and they're processing a lot of applications. There's certainly a lot of them that, as you can see from the results, they were supportive and want to see that platform. And I was also say there's also some that, they've always printed them, they've always submitted them, they're close by in Fortuna, and they are happy with it how it is. So it is a mixed bag, and the numbers are in that the staff report and the questionnaire. And is it 100%? Everybody wants it? No, but it seems like the majority are in support of the convenience of being able to do that. And as we get further, as we move on in the future, it just seems like that expectation is being kind of going to be more prevalent and supported. So that's why we're going that direction. We're trying to keep up with the times or catch up, depending how you see it.
Thank you.
I understand that, because I still come in and pay my water bill in person, even though I could do it electronically. So I know that not everybody's going that direction, but it appears that a majority is. So thanks.
So Liz, will over-the-counter permits and people who still want to bring their paper permits in, are they going to be charged the fee for this that they're not going to be using?
That's a good question. I do believe it would, at this point, unless we change it, it would be on each permit.
See, because I could see that would be a problem for some, some people that are just getting an over-the-counter, permit. You just go in, you're not using the system at all, or people who bring in their stuff and are not using the system are still having to pay for the system.
Yeah, I think it would be justified anyway to include it because the software would still be used by the city on their permit. So, even though that particular permit that person may not get the benefit directly, in what they're doing, their permit would still benefit because, it's being used, the software is being used to process their permit as well. So it would still be collected on every permit.
So that software has to be used to do an over-the-counter permit?
Yeah, just for taking it in for storage, for processing and for storage and for payment processing.
And so say, for example, somebody came in for a hot water heater permit that cost $40, it would be a $2 technology fee. So pretty small on those over-the-counter permits.
And that information would be entered by staff on staff time. So there would need to be a charge for that.
Yeah.
So is it going to take more staff time to enter every permit, or is it going to cut down on staff time?
Well, so if they do it online, there wouldn't be any staff input. So the applicant would put in the information on that permit, and then that would automatically, that information would be collected in the software and then distributed through the referral process.
Somebody has to enter it, don't they?
On a paper copy, staff would input the data, but this process eliminates that. That's one of the steps that gets eliminated. The information gets inputted automatically. It would still need to be checked, and probably there might be
initially there will still be some project setup. It would be similar to what there is now when you're looking at the project. You wouldn't have to do an independent fee calculation, but all of that would have to be checked. Where we're really going to save the time is when you're looking at the processing, moving the information between departments, responding to requests, getting the uploads of the plan. So the efficiency is going to come during the submittal, review, and the review process. In the project setup, it's still going to have to be reviewed. There's going to be a little bit of upfront time, but that's not where the time savings will come from.
So when one person is done with it and it's going to the next one, will it automatically notify the next person that it's ready for them?
Everybody will look at it at the same time and have the ability to comment. And the nice thing is the transparency. So a developer could pull up their project and see exactly what the status is and what reviews have been completed. They can pull up the conditions, they can pull up the fees. Right now we get a lot of requests. They'll have a project, they can't remember what the conditions are. It puts everything in one place for the developer. So when they have a question, a lot of times they'll be able to look right at that, know where it is, and internally we'll be able to see that the fees have been paid. So for example, if we get a call and they need a water service put in by city forces, then the utility superintendent could very quickly look and say, oh, the fees have been paid. They could go out instead of having a chain of communication that goes from the building official to the finance desk to the engineer who oversees and then directs the utility crew to get out there. So it's going to be some efficiency in communications and with all the departments being able to check the status online.
Okay. Buffy, is there a number that has to go up to open public comment?
No, it's already across the screen.
Okay. I'll open public comment. Do we have anybody waiting to make public comments?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay, if we don't have any public comments, then we can move on.
I have a couple more questions, if it's all right.
Yes.
One for finance department. This seems like a totally appropriate use of American Rescue Plan Act funds, but how much of those funds do we have remaining? Is this exhausting it to this last penny, or are there other funds available for other projects such as this? It seems like with the COVID, this eliminates that interpersonal exposure, so it seems very, very much appropriate, but I want to make sure we're not spending all of our last dime.
Aaron, I don't know. I have the last staff report with the last SBR up. I don't know if you want to run through that, me to run through that, or if you have it there.
Yeah, I have it pulled up. So again, just to recap, the city is expected to receive $2,932,000. We spent $2 million, or we budgeted for $2 million for the police department facility remodel project. $300,000 was for revenue recovery. $45,000 went to upgrading the audio visual in the council chambers. Approximately $120,000 went to the employee COVID-19 premium pay. And then $25,000 went to the Parks and Rec software server upgrades. So that totals to $2,490,000. So that leaves $442,000 that have not been allocated as of today. So take 80,000 from that. For this particular project, that would still leave about 360,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if nobody has any questions, do we have a motion? Liz, could you take down your screen so we can see everybody again, please? Thank you. Nobody wants to make a motion?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion. I will move to approve an SBR supplemental budget request to use American Rescue Plan Act funds for Tyler Technologies and the server upgrades necessary to implement the community development permitting software in the amount of $80,230.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Losi,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent.
Ooh, I'm undecided on this one. I guess I'll vote yes.
And Mayor Long is abstained.
Okay, can we have Mayor back?
I have a quick question about the remainder of the presentation. We did not just approve a 5.5% technology fee in that motion. Am I correct?
That's right.
So does that need a separate motion or will that come later?
That, Aaron can correct me if I'm wrong, that would be on the annual fee schedule, that fee would get adopted. The fee schedule that typically accompanies the budget, or, you know.
Yes, that's correct. So just to add a little bit more detail to that, I believe we don't have to pay for the annual maintenance cost until the software is up and running. So we don't anticipate that occurring until next fiscal year. So the plan would be to add that 5% technology fee into next fiscal year's fee schedule. So we usually start looking at the fee schedule around budget time, which will be March and April. And so we'll make sure to include that and bring that up at that time.
And Aaron, just to further that during the first year of setup, so that wouldn't be until 23, 24, the first year is included. So I think the first year would be 22, 23 in the upcoming budget. So we'd have the implementation over the next several months, and there wouldn't be a maintenance fee for the whole first year. So we're a year plus out from having to implement that fee. So I think it would be the next budget cycle.
All right, thank you, Tammy. We'll move on to our next item, which is a public hearing to consider Senate Bill 9, an urgency ordinance implementing state mandated procedures for urban lot splits and 2-unit projects. Ordinance 2022-751. Staff report, please.
And Deputy Director Shore is going to be presenting this one. And again, just a brief summary is that SB 9 was a state mandate with various requirements. And so Deputy Director put together this emergency ordinance to allow the city some of the discretion and to put this in place as an urgency ordinance in the short term until we can work on it more in the long term. So with that, I'll hand it over to Liz and she can provide a staff report.
Thank you, Merritt. Honorable Mayor and council members, I'm going to go ahead and start the PowerPoint and get us through this. So So SB 9, you probably have heard about it over the last year. It's been somewhat controversial and published in, California government publications and even in the newspapers. So what we're going to be talking about is the urgency ordinance itself and why we're doing an urgency ordinance. I'll run through what SB 9 does, what the statute does. That kind of runs together with the next state requirements, and then the proposed code amendments for the Fortuna Municipal Code. It is, there's a lot to it. It's, somewhat confusing because there's a couple of different sections. They're separate and yet they overlap, and it is a lot of information. So the urgency ordinance is allowed by a government code, and it's specifically for land use and zoning. It's not the same as an emergency ordinance. This is specifically for zoning and land use. It's for an ordinance would take immediate effect when there are public health and safety impacts, and those are explained in the ordinance itself. There was significant input by the city attorney. So, to make sure that the ordinance followed the government code requirements for an urgency ordinance. The urgency ordinance bypasses the planning commission. And so it's basically on a kind of like a fast track because there's health and safety impacts. The second reading is waived, so it would take effect, basically tomorrow. And the reason is, in this case, SB 9 dramatically increases housing density, impacts neighborhoods that way, impacts health and safety. It provides little guidance, so it's kind of a complicated thing to implement without that guidance. So the local ordinance creates the standard processing standards as well as the the zoning standards, and it poses health and safety impacts. So the local code, as I just said, establishes a clear application review and approval process, reduces uncertainty, creates standards, and ensures health and safety issues are addressed. So it's definitely justified, and that's why we, thought it was urgent enough to bypass the planning commission. Urgency ordinances are there are certain government code sections limiting their time frame. We are going to go through the regular ordinance process through the planning commission. So we'll be bringing forward a regular ordinance. So, and that will also allow a little bit of extra time to consider other kind of standards that might be adopted for the SB 9 components of the code. So SB 9, what it is, it requires ministerial approval of urban lot splits and 2-unit projects. So the ministerial approval means there's no public hearing. There are the standards that are established by the state law, and then there are some objective standards that cities may adopt. They're pretty limited. I'll show you at the end. We'll go through the discussion and then summarize them on one of the slides of what the local code does propose. But basically, it allows the automatic lot split as residential single family and automatically 2 units on every parcel. So what it would look like, here's a standard parcel, existing single family unit on that parcel. Just a 2-unit project allows an additional residence. This could also, in some cities, or if the code allows, under SB 9, it could also allow an ADU and a junior ADU. So you could actually even have 4 on this lot. And some cities will choose to do that. And then the other alternative through the lot split is to split that original single family parcel, and you have the original house with an extra, new unit, and actually this one should be 2 new units. So with this, the original 1 house on 1 lot, you've got 4 houses, and with an ADU and junior ADU, you could even have, additional 4 units, which is actually not proposed in the draft, and that's one of the reasons for the urgency ordinance. As I'll explain. So for the lot split, the statute says that each lot must be at least 1,200 square feet. So a subdivision of a single family residential lot could be as small as 1,200 square feet. But the other sort of mitigating thing is that each lot must be at least 40% of the original lot. So you can't go below 40% of that lot. So that is going to preclude 1,200 square feet in a lot of cases. So we call it sort of a 50 or a 40-60 split, and that's the minimum. So it may require on-site access and utility easements if they're needed. So you need an access easement to get to the back of the lot for that new unit, and utility easements. Off-site improvements are prohibited. So this is a really big change from subdivisions. So the statute says that cities can't require the normal set of conditions of approval on a subdivision that would require off-site improvements. So what the state is saying is they want to make it as affordable and as far as affordable as possible and as little condition as possible. Now there are some, so the code does allow limited off-site improvements in health and safety situations. And the city attorney did work with the code and with the city's requirements to require limited off-site improvements where health and safety impacts, require it. And that's really limited basically to, the statute right now doesn't even require or allow a sidewalk in front of, an off-site sidewalk in front of the parcel or limited street paving to complete the street in front of the parcel. So those are clear, health and safety, accessibility impacts. So the city attorney did work to make those findings in the ordinance. So this is one of the reasons we wanted to bring this forward as an urgency ordinance. The lot must be within a single family residential zone. So it's only allowed in residential zones, not in commercial and not in multifamily. The lot splits cannot be, they can only be done once. So someone can't do an SB9 lot split and then subdivide those new lots, again and again and get smaller and smaller lots. They're only allowed once, and then adjacent parcels cannot be subdivided by the same owner. And I think that's to minimize investment, large scale investment developments. Where SB9 projects are prohibited, they're not allowed in historic districts or where there's a historic landmark. This is all statute stuff that's mandatory, as it all is. It's a state mandate that we're dealing with. Certain identified sensitive areas, including wetlands, earthquake fault zones, high fire hazard areas, FEMA 100-year floodplains, prime farmland, and lands under conservation easements. And really, these sensitive areas. Really don't warrant higher density development. So that's why these are included in the prohibited areas. So as far as the developments, the 2-unit projects, the state law says that we must allow a minimum of 800 square foot units. So we can't prohibit up to 800 square feet. Over that, local standards can be adopted to restrict size. And in fact, the draft does call for a maximum. So the Fortuna Code draft calls for a minimum or a unit size range between 500 square feet and 800 square feet on the 2-unit developments. No setbacks for existing structures. So state says that if you have an existing structure with maybe non-conforming setbacks, 5 feet from the property line, if that building is going to be partially demolished or completely demolished, and they're allowed to build back on those setbacks without requiring the setbacks for the zone. That's just part of the statute. There can be up to, or the state says there must be up to a 4-foot setback on the side and rear setbacks if the unit cannot be constructed any other way. So this is similar to the accessory dwelling unit code that was just adopted and what the state law requires. So this is kind of just a repeat of that standard. So the draft code does specify that, the zone setbacks will be required unless that 800 square foot unit cannot be constructed otherwise. Parking, the code the state allows up to 1 space per unit. A jurisdiction, if they wanted to, they have the discretion to not require any parking. We cannot mandate, or we cannot, require mandatory additional parking beyond that. If the project is within a half-mile of high-quality transit corridor, then the statute says that we cannot require any parking. Fortuna does not fit that definition. There's a state definition. And it specifies that the bus route would have 15-minute pickup intervals during peak travel times. So Fortuna doesn't qualify in that regard. So we don't need to go with 0. We've got one, but code does call for 1 space per unit as required by the statute. Accessory dwelling units, the statute says that the lot splits may prohibit ADUs and junior ADUs. The 2-unit developments, the statute is silent. So what the draft code does is propose no ADUs or junior ADUs on this lot splits or the 2-unit development projects. So that's fairly consistent with the code. You know, with 2 units on the 2 of the SB9 units on each lot, that's, you know, that's fairly dense. And so some cities, depending on, you know, how they address infill development and affordable housing and this type of development, they may support ADUs and junior ADUs. I think in Fortuna, you know, with the type of development and the expectation and the density that we already have, I think there's concern that that's too dense. And so staff proposes that ADUs and junior ADUs are not allowed on the SB9 projects. So there is an ability to deny, but it's limited. The language to deny, for a city to deny, you know, because the state is making this a mandate and that these projects are to be approved ministerially, they do make the, you know, the standards to deny. It needs to be based on the preponderance of the evidence, that there would be a specific adverse impact on public health and safety. And so what that basically means is the health and safety issue basically needs to be objective and quantifiable, measurable, and not arbitrary. So the code does include a set of standards or findings for denial. And I think that's one of the reasons, one of the justifications for having this as an urgency ordinance. Without that set of findings, you know, just to rely on the statute, the state law, there's not enough guidance there. We wanted to provide some guidance for making denials, and that's what the draft code does. The statute says that the building official makes the written findings. This has been changed to be the community development director, and that is because the state code doesn't really recognize the role of community development on land, you know, land use, zoning, and this type of development. Building officials are typically just concerned with the building code. We changed it to community development. They are the supervisor of the building official, so there would be some communication and you know, collaboration there. So that's just kind of a minor change that we made. The state law does not allow short-term rentals, so Airbnbs are not allowed in an SB9 development. There's a 3-year occupancy of the principal residence by the property owner on a lot split, and the state law says that they sign an affidavit to demonstrate that they intend to occupy them. That's not required for just the straight 2-unit development. And then there's also laws that prohibit displacement of renters and affordable housing. So the state, you know, clearly wanted to protect renters and affordable housing from being displaced. Other provisions, CEQA, the statute exempts SB9 projects from the California Environmental Quality Act, and that's a way of streamlining affordable housing approvals. And then we also have in the ordinance a subdivision amendment adding a definition of urban lot splits. So the lot split section of the code and of SB 9 impacts, subdivision approvals, which are implemented under Title 16. So subdivisions aren't in the zoning code. So we wanted to recognize urban lot splits in the subdivision section of the code. And so we added a definition. And the statute does recognize the Subdivision Map Act as implementing, the rest of the requirements for a subdivision. So it still needs to go through the surveying requirements, the recording of the map, and every other professional and state code that governs maps. So the draft zoning standards, these are really, SB 9 really restricts what the local agencies can do, and it really can potentially dramatically increase the density of a town. So what we could do, that's basically on the slide here. We could control the limit size so that the structures aren't going to be quite as imposing, and this will minimize the densification in these single family zones to some degree, kind of protect the neighborhoods from just having this increased density, increased traffic, increased, just the population and the utilities and the noise and all of the things like that. So reducing the size where allowed. ADUs are called out in our code as not being allowed on any SB 9 parcel. We codified the setbacks, so that just gives us some more security in establishing and requiring the rear and the side setbacks, while we'll still have to recognize the 4-foot setback when it's needed to allow an 800 square foot unit. Off-site improvements where required for health and safety. So without this code section, we wouldn't have been able to require a sidewalk or street paving or things of that nature, just really minimal subdivision standards. There's denial findings. So if the projects don't meet, basically it's a kind of a reiteration of what the state allows us to do, but it gives us more authority. We established an appeal process, and then it clarifies and codifies the administrative permit review process. So that's going to reduce confusion. There really wasn't any guidance in the state laws. So anything that needs to be submitted, along with that application that demonstrates some of the requirements, like the affidavit for the 3-year occupancy and the demonstration that rental units aren't displaced, things like that. That they're in the code now, so that it's going to be clear. We'll put that in our applications. And then, we'll be able to point to the code instead of having to analyze the state law to implement SB 9. We've got the process clear, and so it more neatly fits Fortuna, and it's really going to facilitate the process. So anyway, these are really the main, why did we do it? These are the things that we're allowed to do under SB 9, and that we think were really important. If these weren't done, this kind of created the urgency or aspect of it. When we go to the Planning Commission, we will have some more time now, under a little bit less pressure, but we'll be able to consider possibly other objective standards that might apply and bring those back. The Planning Commission then will make their recommendation, and then we'll bring it to the council for a first reading and a second reading. So how these might impact Fortuna, I think it's, to some degree, to a large degree, the single family lots really aren't going to facilitate additional units or additional, lot splits. You can see here's a standard 6,000 square foot lot. And it's built, pretty much about 30% with the structure. They really aren't going to be able to split that in that 40-60 manner. So they aren't going to be able to get, have 40%, at least 40% on that new lot, or they'll also have, they're really restricted with, they've got a 5-foot setback, but for that access easement to construct a driveway to reach that house, they're not going to have enough room. You need 12 feet. They've only got 5 feet there. So those are really the problems, or why, for the most part, these subdivisions. This is the Sinistrera subdivision, but whether you're in Lawndale or Kenmar, the new subdivisions in Kenmar, they're really going to not, for the most part, you're not going to see a lot of that type of development. There are some, exceptions. The vacant lots in these neighborhoods definitely could have an SB lot split. So you could end up with four units here and then 4 on this lot. So, and that's certainly going to be an impact to that neighborhood to have 8 units where there were 4, or where there would have been 2, I mean. And then the other type of exception you see around town are just these older historic large parcels that have not been developed yet. And they would probably be feasible for an SB9 lot split. Again, they can only go through one SB9 split. So you wouldn't get, anything smaller, like see on this parcel, you'd get two lots, but no more than that. So, and that's pretty much the, within this kind of an R16 neighborhood, that's what you're going to find. There are some areas of the city where there are larger lots. This is Rancho Buena Vista, where the minimum lot size is a ½ an acre. So they, for the most part, they do have the room to create a new lot, and they also probably they have room for the most part to create a driveway access. So they could end up, and actually, to build a new parcel or a new unit on the original parcel, and then 2 units on the new parcel. So they could be impacted. It's probably the same situation in other parts of the area, like Hillside Drive. Some of the lots in Camden Heights are still large and open to subdivision. So these neighborhoods could have an impact. So that's kind of why we wanted to clean up the process, eliminate ADUs, additional, which would create additional units, and then kind of clean up the ability to have some minimal subdivision improvements, and just to clean up the whole process. So your recommendation is to, the one ordinance or the one motion that's in the ordinance would adopt it'd be an urgency ordinance. It would waive the second reading. It would make the finding of CEQA exemption, and it would adopt the standards that are attached to that ordinance. And with that, I will pass that back to the City Council.
Thank you, Liz. Does anyone have comments or questions?
I have a question. So is this ordinance basically to make it a little bit more restrictive than what the state is asking?
I mean, you could definitely call it more restrictive. City can go either way. We really wanted to clean it up, and we kind of followed the path of the ADU ordinance as far as what fits Fortuna, what has the city done in the past, what direction has the city gone in. We wanted to kind of create a pause with this urgency ordinance, so that we could revisit it with the regular ordinance. So it's restrictive in the sense that it proposes that ADUs are prohibited, and it also proposes the smaller unit size between 500 and 800 square feet. Those are the ways that it gets, you could call it prohibitive.
So this ordinance gives the city a little bit more control.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it recognizes the type of development and the standards and expectations for Fortuna.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Councilmember Losi has his hand up, Mayor Pro Tem.
See it now. Liz, would you take your screen down so we can see? Yeah. Thank you. All this zooming stuff is annoying. Mike Losi, you were first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's interesting to note that SB 9 does really nothing to address the affordability issues that the state legislature was yelling about with both SB 10 and 9. Liz, so if our zoning provisions prohibited 2 units on one parcel, would that preempt SB 9?
Could you repeat that question?
If our zoning provisions prohibited 2 units on one parcel, single family residences or areas, would that preempt SB 9?
So the code, so the draft code under SB 9, in response to SB 9, it does allow 2 units per parcel.
Okay.
So it's implementing SB 9.
Okay, so even if we had a prohibiting zoning for single family residences, SB 9 wouldn't be affected. It wouldn't affect SB 9.
Right now, our zoning ordinance, for example, on R16 only allows 1 residence. You know, with the recent ADU ordinance, they're allowed to have an ADU now. So what this does is it puts size restrictions onto those 2 units that could be there. So the state law trumps our zoning ordinance, I guess. Would be that question.
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you. Under Exhibit A, page 33, under uppercase A, 2E, it talks about the affidavit. It's page 33 of 27.
Yes.
And under E. And it says, talks about conditions, covenants, or restrictions on the property that prohibit subdivision of the property. Does that mean that if there were covenants in a homeowners association prohibiting the provisions of SB 9, in other words, a lot split, could that preclude the lot split?
Yes. So SB 9 specifically made this provision. So this comes right out of SB 9. So they said, so it says that that the CC&Rs prevail over SB 9, as opposed to the ADU ordinance or the ADU statute where they did the opposite. They said, even, you know, it doesn't matter if you have homeowners association regulations or CC&Rs or any other kind of restriction, ADUs are automatically allowed in those areas. So for whatever reason, they changed their mind and said, in this case, CC&Rs can prevail. So that's why that's in there. So, and you can see why we wanted the ordinance. This section that you're referring to is the application submittal section. And so, you know, as part of the application, they're going to demonstrate that there are no CC&Rs that would otherwise restrict SB 9 units, which is, you know, a title report or some other way where it would appear that they have them.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Also under C, and it's under 11, small c, and this would be on page 37.
Oh.
And it starts, the city council may establish guidelines that set forth circumstances where a project will have a specific adverse effect or impact on either public health, safety, or on the physical environment. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, can you give us an example or some specifics about what some of those adverse effects would be?
You know, the state law already includes a list of, sensitive areas that are prohibited, like historic district, natural habitat area. These are fire hazard, earthquake zones. These are things that might come up, specific to a city. It could be, I don't know, the airport noise zone or anything. So these are unanticipated items. So it's just saying that, yes, the city, if the city adopts any sensitive kind of an area, these limitations will apply, and that could be considered an adverse impact. So it's kind of leaving it open to the city and kind of protecting them for any future adoptions. Does that make sense?
It does. So it's kind of wide open as to what would or could be a adverse impact on public health, safety, or the physical environment.
Yeah.
Another example could be flood impact. Say if you create one of these and then you have flooding impacts, where, we might not be able to make those findings normally under SB 9. This gives us, it doesn't give us that ability, but we have the ability to use discretion. So it's just any physical impact is what it says from the physical environment. So.
Okay.
I also wanted to note on this page under AI, we need to scratch the MSHCP reference. It's really just it's referring to a sensitive area that we don't have, but again, this is, these are sections that the statute allows to be used as adverse impacts. So we're adopting them even though, like, say we don't have a historic district, but we included that in the code in case we adopt one in the future, then SB 9 projects would be prohibited in those zones. And so that's kind of what section you're reading through. So the MSHCP, that should be deleted and should just be, it's really referring to a habitat conservation plan area that we don't have. I don't think we have one of those in Humboldt County. We don't have.
Should they delete I in the entirety then? Because that's what it.
What's that?
So should they delete that sub bullet or bullet I in its entirety then, Liz? We don't need to talk about that. We don't have
could.
one.
We could, or we could just leave it general to a lowercase habitat conservation area.
Liz, I want to thank you for putting the work into this ordinance. And I think we all understand that these are steps that we need to take to keep as much control, local control, as we can within the provisions of SB 9. So thank you for your work on this, and as well as all the rest of city staff.
Yeah, I think, coming on the heels of the accessory dwelling unit regulations that, that the city went through. And I know that at the staff level, that whole process, the ADU statutes came out a number of years ago, and we've been implementing the regulations out of the state regulations rather than a local ordinance. And, that was pretty cumbersome. And, I think it benefited the city to have it all organized and codified. So I think, there's that part of it. And also just that, I think it's important to get ahead of it when we can. And so I think this just came on the heels of the ADU ordinance and made the process flow a little bit better.
Well, I think it's taken extra effort on your part to put this together and bring it to us. So I think.
Yeah, it's a complicated, the state law, it's not super complicated, but enough where, but I think it's good to understand it.
Liz, we should probably add that our city attorney helped with the review of this and putting together the staff report and the drafting of the ordinance as well. He's pretty efficient and been a big help.
Yeah, significantly.
Jeremy, you had your hand up. Did your question get answered, or do you want to say something?
No, I'd like to say something. I was just curious. It was my understanding that SB 9 only applied to owner occupied. Is that correct?
For the lot split section, the
Yes.
owner must agree to occupy one of the units for 3 years. So if they do the lot split, that's where there's the owner occupation requirement. If they're just doing an extra unit on their property, it can be rental.
So it's not a free for all for everybody that owns a rental to run out and put another unit in the back.
If they're not doing the lot split, then yes, they can do that.
Okay, but then it would have to be like a flag lot with 12-foot ingress egress if you were to split it. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's one of the configurations that would work, yeah. If they have more room in the back, they're gonna do a flag lot. Basically, they would, because most houses are up front.
So nobody could get creative and just put a parking pad in the front lawn and then a walking path to a unit in the back?
Well, the code says that they need to provide one parking space per unit, and they need to have access to their unit. So they're going to need to have a driveway to their house.
Okay. Does that parking have to be covered in the current ordinance?
So the regular zoning standards may be applied if they don't preclude development of one of the units, an 800 square foot unit. So we would require covered parking as a carport or a covered garage.
You would?
Yeah.
But ADUs do not?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? Let's open up public comment in case anyone on our call wants to participate or anyone wants to call in. Does anyone from the council have any other comments or questions?
One more question with regards to older parts of town that have an alleyway. Is that an appropriate ingress egress access for a lot split and a secondary unit?
Probably. We do allow access to garages. The code recognizes that there's a certain setback from an alley when the garage is proposed on from the alley.
And would that require paving that alley?
We do require it generally now. We would have to look at the extent of the paving and consider if that is an allowable offsite improvement.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just a real quick
Go ahead.
question, Madam Mayor. Do we need to have a special finding if somebody makes a motion on this? Do we need a special finding for an urgency ordinance?
No, Ryan Plotz, the city attorney, prepared the ordinance to cover the required findings that are required by the government code.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see anyone from the public. So we'll close public comment.
Yeah, and the ordinance itself on page 28 is an urgency ordinance.
I didn't know if we needed to include any finding in the motion itself.
Oh.
So in an urgency ordinance, does it have a sunset date automatically, or is it in effect until the new ordinance that's gone through the planning commission is implemented?
You know, I'm not sure. I thought that it had, I think like a 45-day, and then the way the code is written, it looks like it has some expirations and then some allowable extensions, but I didn't get clarification from Ryan. And then in seeing what other cities have done, I don't see where they're doing an extension. So I don't know if, you know, the code has another provision where, since this is adopting zoning standards, it may be different from, you know, a different type of urgency ordinance where there's like an imminent health and safety physical health or safety issue, as opposed to zoning standards that are then going to protect over the long term. So I'm not really sure, and I will get back to you on that.
I believe it's 45 days, but we can get back to the council on that.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
Is there any public, or did you close public?
I closed.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-751 and read by title only.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, Buffy.
Okay, ordinance 2022-751, an urgency ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fortuna, California, amending Title 17 zoning regulations of the Fortuna Municipal Code by adding Chapter 17.09 state mandated procedures, and by amending Title 16 subdivisions by adding Section 16.04.070 urban lot splits, and determining the ordinance to be exempt from CEQA. Councilmember Johnson.
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Losi.
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Thank you, Buffy. All right, our next item is council review and discussion of commission applications and mayor's appointment of seats. This one is for the Historical Commission. There were 4 applicants for 3 seats. 3 of the current, well, they expired December 31st, but 3 of the people, Ruth Deckett, Susan O'Hara, and Pam Zana, all currently serve on the Historical Commission and all asked to be reappointed. So that would be my recommendation. And I did share with Eldon Whitehead via email that it would be maybe a good idea for him to go down and talk to Alex and see if there were any volunteer opportunities that he could step into while he's waiting, maybe for someone that doesn't want to reapply the next time around. But again, like with our Measure E people, it's hard to kick people off when they're enjoying what they're doing. They're working very well together. And with Alex, our museum curator, and she also expressed her desire to keep the 3 current people on. So that is my recommendation. We can open public comment in case anyone wants to say anything while the council is talking. Any questions, thoughts?
Well, I serve as the liaison from the council to the Historical Commission, and I know that Pam Zana, Susan O'Hara, and Ruth Deckett do a remarkable job on that, and they have a passion for it. It's not just a position for them; it's something they enjoy, and I think they make great commission members.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? I don't see any public raising hands or joining us, so we'll close public comment.
I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's appointments.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Buffy?
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Losi.
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. And thank you all for your applications and for being willing to serve the city. We appreciate it. Our next item is to approve recruitment for a Public Works Director and eliminate the Deputy Public Works Director position. Merritt?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Long. So the recent resignation by the Deputy Director of Public Works led us to do a review of that position, its responsibilities. Currently, staff feels like the city would be better served by removing the city manager's responsibility as a Public Works Director and having a full-time dedicated person to serve in that position. Due to the demands on the city manager for other assignments, projects outside of Public Works, there really is a need for more oversight, staff development and support, and full-time participation in that department. With this proposal, we'd eliminate the deputy director position and we'd add a director position to be able to provide that oversight and support. We wanted to bring this with a comprehensive organizational chart change. We didn't quite pull it together last week, but time is of the essence on this one. So we really want to get the recruitment for the public works director out there. So we brought this independently. I do expect to bring those org chart changes back to the council on February 7th. The proposed pay scale for the new public works director position is shown in the pay rate schedule that's attached to the staff report. It would start at 84,000 and go up to 102,000. That doesn't include any negotiated increases with the unrepresented employees group. So there's also an impact, a table showing the budget impact. The net budget impact would be a $5,000 increase to the general fund, and also an increase to the enterprise funds in the amount of $14,900. There are other changes that we anticipate making in public works that would reduce the enterprise cost and actually result in a savings. But again, that'll be on February 7th. So the overall budget impact we expect is $5,000 to the general fund.
All right, let's open up public comment. If anyone would like to call a number on your screen, or if any of the participants on our call would like to join our conversation, raise your hand. Questions, comments from the council? Nothing?
Go for it, Sue. I know you have questions.
I'm good. I read my report and looked at my chart and I'm good.
Yeah.
And good staff reports.
So seeing no one from the public joining us, we'll close public comment.
I will go ahead and move to approve city staff proceeding with the recruitment of a public works director and elimination of the deputy public works director position.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, Buffy.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Losi,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. All right. City managers report.
I'll stop doing that one day. I just have a brief report. I want to update the public and the council on the upcoming meeting schedule. Our next regular meeting is on February 7th at 6:00 p.m. Our next planning commission meeting is on January 25th at 6:00 p.m. Our next Measure E meeting is January 19th, tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. And thank you, Councilmember Stanfield and others, for pointing out to the public that we do want public ideas and input on Measure E funds. So that would be at the meeting tomorrow at 5:30. And then the next Roner Community Recreation and Park District meeting is on February 2nd at 2:30 p.m. And I'll just say that a lot of my time over the last couple of weeks has been going into negotiations with the city's bargaining units. It's taken quite a bit of time, but we're making good progress. And that's also an item that's on closed session for tonight's meeting. So that concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Okay.
If I could just add one more thing. We are expecting to bring back at the last meeting, a future agenda item was an update on the police facility. So we are going to be making a presentation on the police facility at the next meeting.
All right, thanks. Any questions for Merritt before we move on to future agenda items? All right, seeing none, do we have any new future agenda items? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to city council reports. Mike Johnson.
Well, this will be short and sweet. I was signed up for a Cal Cities Policy Committee orientation and welcome. And we went into a closed session special workshop for that day. So I missed that, but I did notice that they emailed me the PowerPoints and the meeting tape, so I'll watch that. And then I have not had any meetings, but this coming Thursday, we have an HCOG meeting. Next week, I'm going to be an alternate for RCEA. And while Mike is otherwise engaged, and I will give him a download and some info, and he will probably watch the presentation on that on YouTube to get oriented. And that's all I have for now. Everything's in the future. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Mike Losey.
Thank you, Sue. And thank you, Mike, for doing that. I appreciate it. I have a LAFCO meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m., and it will be Zoomed. And I haven't had any other meetings since our last meeting, but on January 5th, I had the good fortune to attend the changing of the guard ceremony at the Fortuna Fire Hall, where our longstanding fire chief, Lon Winburn, retired after 37 years with the department and being fire chief since 2005. And he handed the reins over to longtime Assistant Chief Russ Brown, who had the chief's badge pinned on him by his wife. And of course, his children and everybody was there. Folks from our community were there, including our fire commissioners, our second district supervisor, Michelle Bushnell, and our retired fire chief, Frank Heiser. I hadn't seen Frank in many, many years, and he was a fire chief, a great chief here for a long, long time. He comes from the old school of fire chiefs like Bud Westcott, from that era. And so congratulations to Lon Winburn and his wife, Julie, for a well-deserved retirement. Congratulations to Russ, who we know will do a fantastic job as our new fire chief. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Jeremy.
So we had a regular meeting last week for Fortuna Business Improvement District, and we adopted some bylaws that are much more in line with the city ordinance, and we're working on final preparations for the auditor's draft report for our audits. We agreed to pay the last installment of our auditor's bill in December, and we'll be working with the city manager and staff on a new contract in the next coming few weeks. We got our website more updated recently, and we're happy to announce a new employee that starts this coming Monday. We're offering a start out of 16 hours per week to start, because that's what our budget allows. And I'd like to welcome Kaylin Stainbrook as our new director for Fortuna Business Improvement District. I think her enthusiasm and her savvy technology ability to use technology for social media. She has a hobby / side business that's photography, which I'm sure will come in handy with some of her duties as the FBID director. And I hope she grows the position, and I hope we can increase her hours as time goes by and her involvement in the business community. And I want to thank again Erica Thompson for her commitment to FBID over 10 years. Also like to thank our current president, Emily Hobelman, for all of her dedication and time and energy throughout this process of transition, along with the other board members of FBID that have all contributed and stepped up in various ways to really become a united front, a good team of volunteers that want to see the success of the business and the business improvement district. Also, I want to thank, I'm probably going to steal a little bit of your thunder here because I wasn't able to attend, but I am the liaison for the Parks and Rec. So I want to thank Mayor Long and Councilman Johnson for going for the photo op regarding the new Toro mower for Parks and Rec. And a big thank you to Valley Petroleum for their generous donation to our needs through the Parks and Recs department. And just love seeing the amount of kids out at Roner Park and Newburgh Park still on that bike path and just going gangbusters over the last couple weekends of sunshine that I've noticed. And and our parks are looking great. And I just really appreciate all the hard work of the staff. Other than that, I think that's all I have to report on city business. But just want to tell everybody that I hope their holiday and their new year and all that is going well. And the words for this year again are peace, compassion, and prosperity for everybody.
Thank you, Jeremy. Tammy?
Well, mine is pretty short and simple. I have nothing to report.
Okay. So Renee and I managed to get all the trophies and the money prizes out to all of the holiday dazzle winners. So that has ended for the year, and that was pretty fun. I've spent the last 2 Saturdays working on skills and drills with the Hot Shots program. We've had about 160 kids go through there in an hour and 45 minutes, and it is wild and crazy. We've had a lot more volunteers this last week, which was really good, but there's still only so much room in there. So, I mean, it's it's crowded, and you get all those balls bouncing and going in all the crazy directions, but it's really fun. The kids are adorable. So their games start on the 29th. So we have one more Saturday of skills and drills, and then it's game time. I did attend my, what'd you call that, Mike? Initiation or whatever. Orientation. There we go. For the public or League of California Cities. I always forget my committee. Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee. Mike, I don't think you missed too much. It was really, really boring. So we didn't talk about anything. They just talked about making motions, and yeah, it was boring. But I did it. So I have a REDAC meeting on Monday night, and we'll have a redevelopment oversight board meeting later this month, where Aaron has prepared his ROPS agreement. So hopefully that will be approved, and we'll send that off to the Department of Finance and move that along. And with that, we do have 2 closed session items. Conference with real property negotiator pursuant to section 54956.8 of the government code, vacant land along Eel River and 1320 Riverwalk Drive. Negotiating parties are the city manager, Merritt Perry for Fortuna, and Land MT for the landowner. Under negotiation is a price in terms of payment. Our second item is conference with labor negotiators. City negotiator is the city manager, Merritt Perry. The employee organizations are the Fortuna Police Employees Association, the Fortuna Employees Association, and the Unrepresented / Management Group, in accordance with section 54957.6 of the government code. So you can entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, Buffy will do her magic, and then we will reconvene in a couple
Madam
minutes.
Mayor, I see a hand up with a cell phone.
Thank you. Whoever that is, you have a comment? Are you there?
It looks like they're muted. Let me see if I can
unmute them. What is it? *6 unmutes?
I don't remember which one unmutes. There we go.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. This is Justin Primapori, President of the Fortuna Police Employees Association. Is there an opportunity for public comment on the closed session items?
As far as I know, we don't have any rules against that, do we?
No.
Go for it.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I would just like to start off by saying thank you to the city's negotiation team for all the hard work they put into negotiations and how helpful and prompt they've been with information requests. I've negotiated on behalf of the FDEA for several contracts, and this time by far has been the best experience I've had. Members of the FDEA negotiation team and the city's negotiation team have been working very hard to put together a fair, equitable contract for both sides. I feel the proposal you're going to review tonight in closed session is fair and equitable for both the members of the FDEA and the city. I know the FDEA is not the only bargaining unit negotiating a new contract, and there's a much larger picture to consider. The FDEA recognizes this, and is why we feel the proposal will be fair to the FDEA and the city. However, even though we are only at one piece of the pie, we are an extremely important piece. When someone is in danger, we go without question. When we are often there on the worst day of someone's life, and depending on the circumstances, we can be the consequence that someone needs to turn their life around. We can be the ear that someone needs to vent, and we can be the one performing life-saving efforts on a loved one and give them a fighting chance until medical personnel can get there. And especially in times like this, we can be the person who steps in and get someone help when their world is dark and they feel that there's only one way out. Each and every one of us carries those experiences and emotions with us and learn and grow from them. In this line of work, it takes time to learn compassion for other people's situations when we've never experienced that in our own lives. In today's world, experienced personnel is becoming harder to come by, and finding new people willing to take those experiences grows even harder. Members of the FEA are good, experienced people who serve the community with pride and honor. Every day we strap on our armor or put on our headset, we put aside how we're feeling and what's going on in our lives to serve the members of this community and put their priority first. One of the best things we have going for us right now is our culture. We have leadership that encourages personal growth and leadership that values us. However, in today's world, that can only carry us so far. In an increasingly stressed economy and strained labor market, opportunities are out there for our members to seek better financial opportunities. With their experience, they would be an absolute score for another organization. Currently, we are down several positions and are working countless hours of overtime. This has an unmeasurable toll on the home life of our members. Oftentimes, we have to choose between going to one of our children's events or making sure a shift isn't working short. Most times, it's the latter. We sacrifice our family for the greater good of the community. And because of that sacrifice, the public doesn't have to wait tens of minutes for an officer to arrive or even hours. They get to enjoy probably what is one of the quickest response times in the county. We're beginning to reach an ignition point of a fuse that once lit, we cannot stop. If we continue to lose officers at the rate without being able to fill positions quickly, people will burn out and go somewhere where they can work less hours for the same financial benefit. Every member of this association has different wants and needs, so I'm not saying this proposal would stop everyone from leaving, but it gives the FPA and the city a fighting chance. The only way we're going to be able to match the attrition rate is to attract laterals. When you consider someone who's fresh out of the academy and the amount of time and personnel work it takes to get them out on a solo officer status versus hiring someone with experience, the number is staggering. We have leadership in place that draws people. We have a good, well-rounded staff that people want to work with, and now we have an opportunity to take a step in the right direction to close the financial gap that we've struggled with for so long. During our negotiation meetings, I've acknowledged the thoughts of financial uncertainty for the city with the projections and the fact the proposal looks uncomfortable. However, one of my negotiation team members, Dennis Stevens, said that we, the FPA, are uncomfortable right now. With the amount of hours we work, the projection of possibly losing 2 more in the next couple of months, our light at the end of the tunnel is fading. We've been doing this for so long now, we're running on fumes. So this proposal gives us a fuel to keep going and hope that we'll make it out of the tunnel of darkness in one piece. This proposal requires a little bit of faith on both sides. The FPA has faith that the council will see our struggles and do what they can to help ease the burden. And our hope is that the council has faith in the FPA, faith that we see you're putting your best foot forward, even in times of economic uncertainty. If any of you guys ever have any questions, you can feel free to contact me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Justin. All right, with that, I don't see any other hands. So did we have a motion to adjourn? We already did, right?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Everybody? Aye. Okay. All right, Buffy, now do your magic for us, please.
Okay, let me get Mary on there. Hold on.
Thanks.